Welcome to the Becoming Sound podcast, where we dive into the tough stuff and try to find the humor in the hot mess of being an adult child. Join me as we peel back the layers on growing up in dysfunction, navigating substance abuse, mental health challenges, and everything in between. Welcome back to Becoming Sound. I'm your host, Krista Zaft, and thank you so much for joining me today. We are going to dive into a conversation that blends health and healing and the stories that connect us. My guest is Melanie Wakelin. I met Melanie in a coaching group and we had an instant connection. She is authentic, she is intuitive, and she has a great sense of humor and the best laugh. And I just knew that we would be fast friends. So Mel brings a fresh perspective on how nutraceuticals and cellular activation can support our well-being from the inside out. But what I love most about this conversation is that it goes beyond talking about supplements and antioxidants. We talk about the power of being vulnerable, the impact of substance abuse on our bodies and how we can help to maybe repair that, and really how storytelling creates connection and community and all of that good stuff. So she is the host of her own podcast called Activate and Illuminate. And today she's going to talk about what happens when we care for ourselves at a cellular level and when we share our truth with others, what happens. So grab your coffee and let's jump in. Hi, Mel. Welcome to Becoming Sound. How are you doing today?
I'm doing fantastic. Thanks for having me.
I am so glad that we got you on here.
Yeah.
Mel and I have become fast friends through a coaching group that we're in. And some people you just click with, right? That was Mel and I. So I want you to tell me just something that you're passionate about and how you think it'll relate to my listeners.
Well, I'm passionate about a few different
I
things,
was going to
but
say that's loaded.
the last 10 years I have spent um, involved in bringing to market a nutraceutical here in Canada, and that's really relevant in the whole addiction and recovery space.
Mhm. Okay, so start
So,
out, tell people what a nutraceutical is.
okay. So essentially, what we are talking about is a line of activators that actually turn your body on to work like it should, using all natural ingredients.
Mhm.
So a pharmaceutical is using, pharmaceutical ingredients and not natural ingredients. A nutraceutical is using all natural substances, plant-based substances. So what we are talking about is essentially something that turns on our body to work like it should. So I didn't know when I started this that there's actually a protein in our body that when it's activated, it actually goes in and tells your body to make way higher amounts of antioxidants.
Mm.
And, we're just taught that we can supplement antioxidants and all, there's a whole antioxidant industry. And I didn't really know too much about it, to be honest with you, when I started. I mean, of course, everybody had heard of antioxidants. But when I realized that there was this actual protein that when it was activated, could turn your body on to make them in such high amounts, way higher than you could possibly ever supplement,
Mhm.
and that it reduced that cellular root cause of disease. And we can't say that this treats, cures, or prevents any kind of anything.
Mhm. And
But
we are
it
not scientists, just
and we
note.
and pardon me?
We are not scientists, just take note.
Yeah, I'm not a scientist and I'm not a health professional, but I have spent the last 10 years talking to people about this. And so, yeah, it's becoming very, very relevant. In fact, just recently, we've all seen in the news this conversation of Tylenol and glutathione.
Mhm. Talk about that.
And yeah, so, we've heard about Tylenol.
Mhm.
And I mean, being a mom with my oldest is now 26 and my youngest is 22, I will tell you that based off of the science now, I know I give them way too much.
Mhm.
Right? And
Well, I
probably
probably
took
did
way
too to
too
my
much.
kids.
Yeah,
Yeah,
right? Like,
yeah.
it was just what you did. If they had different things, you gave them baby Tylenol.
Mhm.
But what we know now and what they're starting to talk about now is that when you actually take this Tylenol, it actually um, allows for some of those natural antioxidants, they go down.
Mhm.
So you have a natural antioxidant called glutathione, and when you take Tylenol, it depletes it.
Mm.
And so we have something that has, yeah, changed the way that I've looked at a lot of different things. And honestly, so I've spent my last 10 years being involved in this, and it has become the most important thing that I've ever done. Because if you can give somebody a little bit of hope in their health journey or a little bit of a support tool for what they're going through, it, um, it it's just the most important thing you could do.
Mhm. And I think there's so much more coming out about
Oh,
natural supplementation and how, like how different drugs affect your liver and your stomach and upset your microbiome and all that kind of stuff. I love researching the body, and I have a little bit of background in the human body too. So it's super interesting about how we can start to pay attention to ourselves and treat ourselves with supplementation to help boost our natural health so that we don't end up at the doctor, looking for solutions to ailments that are already there.
yeah, if essentially, if you can fix the cell, you'll be well.
Mhm. Yeah,
And and
exactly.
and and so this whole idea of cellular activation is essentially that, like, our bodies are always in this state of ease or dis-ease, and, that's from, like, a cellular perspective. So I look
Mhm,
at it a little bit like, a set of dominoes, and what I see happening in people is you push over one domino and other dominoes start to fall. Then they're
mhm,
able to, if you take away a little bit of pain, all of a sudden their ability to interact with their family or their ability to just show up as a little bit better of a human being changes
mhm,
because when we're in pain or we're in dis-ease, it's not easy to necessarily be your best self.
mhm,
So when you can push that first domino and start things communicating a little bit better and start things working better, all the systems start to come online.
mhm. So, do you wanna mention the name of the product? I'll have it in the show notes, but what is it?
Yeah, so the product itself is called Protandim,
Mhm.
and it is something that is clinically proven to reduce your cellular oxidative stress by 40% in 30 days.
Wow.
And this oxidative stress is the root cause of so many conditions. So whatever it is that you have, like if you have
Mhm,
arthritis or anything, you can go on and you can say, is arthritis related to oxidative stress?
mhm,
And so many things are related to oxidative stress. Let me tell
mhm.
you what ChatGPT actually says about um, what we're talking about.
Okay. And I mean, I have a little bit of background in this too. I'm obviously no health professional or scientist, but, um, when you have oxidative stress, you end up with inflammation. And
Yeah,
there's a lot being
100%
talked about that at the root of most diseases and ailments is
is
inflammation in our body
inflammation.
in some. Yeah. And so that's
Yeah.
where it starts, like a ripple effect, right?
Um, so essentially what this little activator Protandim does is it turns on your body's ability to make its own glutathione. So
Mm,
glutathione is your master antioxidant. Now, I'll tie this into where it's relevant to your listeners. So it's the master detoxifier.
mhm.
It's like the cleanup crew. It,
Yeah.
it goes in and starts repairing all that oxidative stress. recycling other antioxidants. So when your glutathione's high, it's not only cleaning up stuff, it's able to utilize what you already have and recycle it, which is
Uh-huh.
why it's such an amplifier. It's a cell protector. It keeps your liver, your brain, your nervous system from being overwhelmed. And it's mitochondrial support. It basically keeps your energy high. So, and that's really important for mood and mental clarity as well.
Uh-huh.
But in addiction, when someone's dealing with substance abuse, the alcohol, the opioids, the stimulants, nicotine, whatever it is, the oxidative stress skyrockets
Yeah.
and the brain takes a huge hit. So when these substances generate free radicals and inflammatory processes, they damage the brain cells, creates this glutathione depletion, and it leaves the body less able to detox and repair itself.
Uh-huh.
So it basically hijacks our system. So essentially, how it helps when you turn on your body to be able to make this yourself, you're restoring your brain health. You're turning that back on. You're giving your brain a bunch of it's able to rewire itself. It
Uh-huh.
reduces cravings. So just by turning on your body's ability to make this antioxidant again, your cravings will actually go down.
Hmm.
So it
Interesting.
calms your system, calms your inflammation, and it helps reduce the chemical drive to seek substances.
Hmm.
So it also aids in liver repair. So anyone that's, had any kind of substance issues, your liver's going to get hammered. The glutathione's critical for the liver detox.
Uh-huh.
And it's a huge mood stabilizer, like I said before. Higher glutathione levels are tied to better mood, better energy. So yeah, so essentially it's just, a health cocktail. But
Uh-huh.
as it relates to this discussion and, what you're so passionate about talking about,
Uh-huh.
it just becomes another tool in the toolbox that people can utilize.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, it's obviously there's nothing that's a cure-all. So disclaimer, you have to do your own research and look into stuff yourself for sure and decide what's right for your body and talk to your health professional if needed. But yeah, I think there's a lot of interesting stuff there, especially for people who are in recovery and looking for something just to help detoxify. Most of us have livers that take a hit from,
Yeah.
like you said, the stuff we're, putting, it's like the garbage can of your system. And if the garbage can's full, your body can't operate properly. And that goes for other things too, like hormones, like women who are in menopause, all the hormones, or girls on birth control, all that kind of stuff. All
Yeah.
that stuff gets recycled in your liver, and just to keep those cells healthy and keep that garbage can cleaned out. So important for feeling your best. So I wanted to ask you too, because you have a podcast,
Yeah.
and I know that the path that you've been on with this product for 10 years, you've heard a lot of people's testimonials and stories and stuff like that. And I really want to talk about the power of story, not just the podcast, but about all the people that you've come in contact with and why that's so powerful to hear people speak about their stuff.
Yeah. I wanted to start a podcast. I didn't want it to necessarily be centered just around these products. I didn't want people to think that they were going to listen to a podcast and that was all they were going to hear about, right?
Yeah.
But the the podcast is called Activate and Illuminate, and that whole concept of activation and like what we had talked about before, that domino effect,
Hmm.
that is what I've spent the last 10 years watching people do from a cellular perspective and from a life perspective. But I wanted to be able to share stories and find examples of people that were maybe doing that outside of that circle as well. So
Hmm.
I this whole idea of activate and illuminate, I think that's what happens. If you start activating yourself in different ways, and it can be, multitude of different ways, but you know how it is, right? If you start doing one thing, all of a sudden you start and it makes your life better. You start looking for other examples of making your life better in other areas. And
100%.
it just becomes this chain reaction. So people, when they start to get, healthier, and now, I'm not the perfect example of every qualifying metric of health, but you start doing a little thing better here, you're going to start doing a little bit better thing over here. You start showing up a little bit better in your health, you're going to be a little bit better in your relationships, in your parenting, and in how you show up to work. If you don't have a headache, if you know, have a little bit more energy, people start to notice these things. And so
Uh-huh.
I wanted to share these examples of people maybe doing a little bit of something extra, something a little bit out of the ordinary. Perhaps
Uh-huh.
they just feel like they are ordinary, but they've been able to amplify their lives in different ways.
Uh-huh.
So that's what the podcast is about. We have different people from all different backgrounds. Honestly, I've had whistleblowers. I've had people that have, gone on 3,000-kilometer treks solo in a canoe across Canada. I've had, people talking about schizophrenia and mental health. I've had people talking about spiritual things, healing tools, all different kinds of things.
Uh-huh.
Some
That's awesome.
authors, so that's what the podcast is about.
Mm-hmm. So give me some takeaways that you have about the power of people telling their story.
Yeah. Honestly, I feel like when one person shares their story, it gives other people permission to not only feel their story,
Mm-hmm.
but to also be able to share it. So I feel like even just one person opening up in an authentic, vulnerable way, they say
Mm-hmm.
that authenticity, like when they've actually stuck people in these Faraday cages and actually measured the electrical output and the energetic output, um, the highest resonance you would think would be love, right? Or
Mm-hmm.
joy or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
But actually, what they actually came to realize is that authenticity measured way higher, vulnerability
Really?
measured way higher than love. And so you would think that love is the highest frequency, but I think the power of people sharing their stories
Mm-hmm.
has a way bigger impact than we can possibly see. Like, for example, I had a girl on talking about feng shui and just the importance and how it can affect your life. And I actually found that I actually worked with her and did some of these things in my own life. And so we were talking about it in this podcast, just some of the different changes I had seen in myself and been able to feel. And after watching that podcast, this girl that I know said, Melanie, I listened to that podcast and I went and I realized that I had to clean up my entranceway. And
Yeah.
so I went and I cleaned up my entranceway. And she's like, do you know how much money I have created since then? She said, all of
Really?
this extra income came in. And this was, a single mom, somebody that was like, it wasn't expected income. And she's like, all of this happened. And so if that was like one little person from one person sharing their story and one little tip
Mm-hmm.
or trick, and then one person listening to it, and that has happened on just about every single episode with every person, it gives people not only permission but also some tips and tricks of this whole life thing that we're
Mm-hmm.
all trying
Life
to
hacks.
figure out.
Yeah, some serious life hacks. I've gotten so many life hacks off of podcasts, I can't even tell you.
Right? And if we listen to it, for some reason, like, listening to somebody tell their story, you could go and you could tell somebody what to do,
Yeah.
Nobody wants to be told what to do.
No.
But if you listen, if somebody tells me what to do, I can promise you that I won't do it and I'll likely make a diversion. But if somebody shares their story from an empowering perspective of what it did for them, it makes you want to jump in and be able to create that same result for yourself.
Yeah. Oh, I can't agree more. I think the power of story came to me when I actually started going to like groups like Al Anon and stuff like that, because you feel so alone when you're in a situation like dysfunction or, living with addiction or whatever. And w- just hearing one person sit across the room from you tell the story, and you're like, oh, I totally relate because I'm feeling the same way. It takes you from feeling alone or isolated or unheard, unseen to a place where you feel validated. I think that that's the power of hearing other people's stories. And you don't need to come on a podcast like this to tell it out in public for the world to hear, but even just finding a friend or someone that you trust to start speaking up. And I think that's what you're doing with your podcast. And I listen to a lot of episodes, and I think hearing those stories gives people, like you said, this freedom to learn to speak their own truth in whatever way that is. So it's very powerful.
Yeah, and like, for example, generally, the people in our life that we're closest to, we don't
Mhm.
listen to.
No.
It takes generally somebody outside of that. I see it all the time.
Yeah.
Like it, your family doesn't listen to you. Your friends generally, you can tell your friend something, but if somebody else tells your friend something and corroborates what you've already said, all of a sudden then you're validated. But for
Uh-huh.
example, some of these studies and so forth that we have on this product, if you have somebody with MS and you say, "Oh, okay, like there's a study on it. This is what it does, and you can do this and you can do that," it means nothing. But if
Uh,
somebody actually with MS said, "Oh, you know what? Like I'm able to sleep better," that changes the world, right? Like then all of
yeah.
a sudden they're able to believe it. So,
Mhm.
yeah,
There's a trust factor when you hear the real deal from a person.
yeah,
Yeah.
right, yeah, 100%.
Yeah. I love that. From all of the interviews you've done, what do you think's kind of a common factor that makes people want to tell their stories?
Honestly, I mean, I think we all want to be heard at some level.
Mhm.
I think we all want to be, validated, but it's freeing and it's
Mhm.
empowering. And what I see happening with people is that regardless of what their story is, whether it's, trauma or, different types of childhood situations, regardless of whatever it is, you share a piece of yourself that you let other people see and you put that out into the world. It's empowering and it's a little bit of this, you know, social media right now is like all about, presenting yourself and putting yourself out there. It's not necessarily the real deal, but when we can actually put a little piece of our real self out there and
Mhm.
say, who cares? I don't care who sees this. I am who I am. And
Yeah.
like me or hate me or, whatever in between. But when you actually do that, and you have to, once it's out there, it's like, well, it's out there now.
Yeah.
Um, people I think it's freeing for people. I think it's
Yeah.
actually liberating, and what I see happening is people stepping up in even more ways, and it becomes like one of these dominoes in the picture that once you put yourself out there without fear, you're able to then be fearless in other situations and show up in
Mhm.
bigger ways in other areas.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it took me a long time to even put myself out, not just on social media, but even just to do the recordings on the podcast. I started out doing audio because I'm like, this like crazy fear came over me about, how am I going to look and all this kind of stuff and being in control of the situation. And not wanting to look like a complete idiot, but and there's still a little part of me that has that because deep programming is hard to overcome. And I think that's one of the reasons why people stop themselves from being vulnerable or from just putting themselves out there authentically.
Well, I was speaking with somebody about this today, and it's like, you know, when you just feel like one situation is an amplifier for something else, and then all of a sudden you're connected with, a group of people that are amplifying themselves in little ways, and
Mhm.
somebody else's amplification just by being connected to them can help rise up our level of just our own energy and our own enthusiasm, and it makes us feel good when other people succeed at something. And that's what
Yeah.
I think happens with telling your story, is that it's like this, you know, just just sharing something that gives even just one person hope, or one person something where they're able to go out, like, just imagine that, like, if that was, you know, happening on a daily basis and they were able to pass it on. I mean, it doesn't take long before all of a sudden, collectively, we're all just doing a little better.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, like huge domino effect, right? What's kind of been one of the biggest surprises that you've had from doing the podcast? Like what come out at you that you didn't expect?
Ooh, well, I'll be honest with you. I wasn't actually even thinking about doing a podcast. I wasn't looking for
Why
a
are you then?
podcast.
I
I
know why you are now, but what really pushed you over that
yeah,
edge?
I had somebody suggest it to me, and when they suggested it to me as a way to kind of tie in all this, the activation piece of my life, some of the other stuff that I had going on, and when they did, I just got all over body goosebumps, and I was like, "Oh my god." I've never thought about this before, but I could not ignore the physical response that I was feeling in
Yeah.
my body, and then as I started to explore it more, I started to get some excitement about it, and then as I realized, okay, like, all of these different experiences that I had had kind of set up the trajectory of the podcast. Like, I feel like, it just seemed to be a natural progression. And so then I started doing it. I didn't think it would be so much work. I didn't think it would quite be so much money. I didn't think it would be a lot of things. But this is what I know, is that as soon as we can increase our networks and increase our voice and increase our community, we increase our potential, we increase our own energy.
Mhm.
And those little catalyst moments and this reciprocity that we experience with people is honestly what just lights me up. Because
Yeah.
as soon as you can share one person's story
Mhm.
of somebody that, like, what I love doing is finding, people, that the underdogs that have a story that needs to be told, that maybe, like, I'll be honest with you, I don't have, millions of followers, but it is, yet. I don't have millions of followers
That's right.
yet. You're welcome to follow, like, and subscribe. Um,
It'll be in the
but
show notes.
but it's just, if I can help showcase someone like that,
Mhm.
and just a little bit, that's what I like to do.
That's awesome. I love it too because you have a lot of stories on your podcast that I listen, I'm like, "Where is she finding these people?" Like
You know
like
what?
really interesting kinda just stories that I would have never, otherwise kinda listened to or thought that that would be so interesting, you know?
Yeah.
So, yeah, yeah,
Can
I
I
love
tell you
that.
my biggest success in tracking down somebody for the podcast?
Yeah, go ahead.
So, I live outside of Edmonton, and, in our little community, there was a book that I had read, and it was of this guy he wrote this story of his mother, and his mother had escaped communist China and actually swam across part of the sea, and he wrote this book called The Freedom Swimmers. and
Mm.
I couldn't track him down. He was from our little hometown, and, I couldn't track him down, and finally, I was able to track him down through somebody that I knew that worked in the same area as him, and it took me months, and he finally responded to me. He hadn't gotten some of our first emails, and I felt like such a detective.
I was just gonna say, when you do podcasts, you become an internet sleuth, you know?
Yeah, yeah. I was like, "You do not."
Researcher extraordinaire.
Yeah, I'm like, "You don't understand." And he's actually with, EPS, with Edmonton Police, and I was like, "You know what? Like, this story, like, I am most proud of how I found you and how I actually got to talk to you, like, months and months and months later because it took me so long." So, yeah.
Yeah,
How do I find
that's
people?
awesome.
I don't know. Just keep going.
Yeah, yeah, that's awesome. It makes you feel like the challenge of it was like success, complete success, right?
Yeah,
Regardless of what the story was
yeah,
about.
yeah.
It just yeah, just that piece.
Yeah,
I
and
love that.
honestly, like, what I love is sometimes I'll just hear something or see something, and I'm like, "You gotta reach out to that person," and
Yeah,
I've reached out to some people that were, like, on my chicken list for sure,
yeah,
but sometimes it works out. Sometimes
yeah,
it's like, it just works out.
yeah, and the worst thing that's gonna happen is they say, "No, thank you,"
Yeah,
right? That's
yeah,
it.
yeah,
Otherwise, you never know who you're gonna get, so anyone out there, if you have a podcast or you're listening or just all you gotta do is ask, right?
yeah.
Yeah, that's the amazing thing about it. So what are you excited about that you have coming up?
Ooh. Well, what am I excited about that I have come I got a few things happening that I'm excited. This is what I'm excited about. You know, I've been doing this activation journey now for 10 years, but sometimes, you it's a struggle at
Mhm,
times. Sometimes you work harder than you actually see in the moment, and sometimes things just line up. And what I feel like right now is this whole world right now is lined up to just to get the grasp of the importance of it. There's been so many different things. I feel like COVID in itself was a little bit of a turning point for people to realize that they, needed to do something else or to
mhm,
have a bit of a plan B. But to just take serious control of our health. And
mhm.
that, I mean, honestly, if you don't have your health, you have nothing else.
Exactly.
And so I'm excited about that. I've got some international opportunities coming up where I'm going to some places that I didn't expect
Mhm.
to be going. And so I'm excited about that. And
That's awesome.
honestly, it's just the community and the sense of just amplifying what we have and other people that want to join in. That's what excites me.
Yeah, that's awesome. When you like you said before, when you start taking care of yourself and you start paying attention to not just your health, but the ripple effect in your life, the opportunities that come when you least expect them, or the communities that start to open up, like how I met you. And that's just
Yeah,
me stepping out of my own comfort zone
yeah,
and wanting to be a part of something different. Yeah, you end up being in the same coaching group as someone else and stuff just clicks. And we were in a speaking group, which is, helping both of us
yeah.
in what we do. And the power of the speaking group is you get to hear everyone's stories, what's going on in their life or where they came from, and the power of some of those stories and the way that connection changes in the moment that you hear their story. You can be in a community or group with someone and not really know them or understand them, or maybe have a bias or a preconceived notion. And then you hear their story and you're like, wow, I just everything just shifted,
You know what I think it
you
is? I
know?
think it releases the judgments.
Oh,
As
yeah.
soon as you hear that story and you start to realize how you've judged them, and I mean, let's face it, we all do to a certain
Yeah, we
extent,
all
but
do. If you say you don't, you're lying to
yeah,
yourself
yeah,
for sure.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and
we all
so
do.
as soon as you hear their their trials and tribulations, we're able to shift that judgment, I think, into more of a from an empathy
Mhm.
standpoint, and
Yeah,
it completely transitions our ability to see them all as humanity, right?
yeah.
Versus this or that. It just yeah, it connects us.
It does, yeah, I was just thinking that word in my head too, and instead of this world where we feel so separate, or you're the lone wolf, or you're, the strong silent type, I think there's just such a misconception, and then when you tell your story, all of a sudden, you're just part of that humanness with someone else, and that's so incredibly powerful.
I think we have been in a time that has been very well divided and divisive and around so
Mhm,
many different situations. And my hope is that, communities will start to thrive again, that
mhm.
people feel safe in communities, they feel supported by their communities, that they have access to resources. And, so many people don't even know their neighbors.
I
And
know.
we've been taught and conditioned, particularly the last few years. It's like, oh, what are they doing? Like, who are they? Are they safe? Well, that never even used to be a conversation.
Mm-mm.
And this whole idea that we have around safety and putting ourselves out there, and, you know, I think we need to get back to a simpler time when neighbors would just try to figure out how they could make the other neighbor's life a little bit better, how they
Yeah.
could like drop something off, or, you know, take a kid or help out in some way. And what I really would love to see is the importance of community and connection being supported, encouraged over any type of
Mhm.
safety.
Yeah, me too. That theme seems to be coming up in my life over and over and over again, that like tribe,
Yeah,
like getting back to the embracing the wisdom and the power of being in community and tribe. Like we've been separated from that for so long, and that isn't how it used to be and keeps
yeah,
coming up in my life. So it's definitely something I love to talk about.
yeah, for
Yeah.
sure.
So what have you got coming up in your podcast world?
Um, Actually, a conversation that is was quite exciting for me. I was nervous of it, to be
Yeah.
truthful. um, is a conversation that I had with my daughter
Oh,
around around intuitive gifts in the younger generation. So
nice.
she's very intuitive, and she, has different things and stuff that she's experienced, and she actually helps a lot of people with these gifts. But it was, for me, I felt very vulnerable and, or protective, I should say. Um, but we did that podcast, and it's coming out not this week, but next week.
Yeah.
So I'm excited about that. The one after that is this uh guy that I told you about that I tracked down
Yeah.
for months. So he wrote
That's
this book called The Freedom
awesome.
Swimmers. I
Yeah.
have a guy coming out tomorrow that tells about his story of transitioning, and just some of the trials and tribulations of that. And so,
Mhm.
yeah, all different kinds of things. That's the next few episodes, but
That's awesome. I
yeah,
love the broad spectrum that you encompass. It's always different. It's always like interesting. And yeah, I love that about it. And it's always inspirational. So I love
there
that.
there's so many ways that we could find ourselves to be disconnected from certain
Mhm.
people or from certain groups. And what I try to do with each of the episodes is to figure out the ways that we can be connected, and to connect people into their story, and just to find
Yeah.
similar threads to humanity, really, because I mean, we are all part of humanity.
Yeah. Yeah. There's just too much division nowadays for sure. And that's a whole nother episode.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So how can people get a hold of you?
Well, you know what? You can find me on Facebook at the podcast, Activate and Illuminate. We're on Instagram, and you can also find me activateandilluminate.com. And you could email me, mwakelin@gmail.com, and I'm happy to connect with anyone.
Yeah, that's awesome. I will have all
Well,
that in the show notes, and yeah, people can get a hold of you. Anyone wants to tell their story, tell me something that has really excited you in the last week of your life.
we've recently done some events, some local events in Edmonton, and there was just so much synergy created, and so many people that were just, when you feel like people find you and you connect with them, or you think of somebody in that right moment. Like,
Hmm.
for example, I was thinking of this one person, and I messaged out to her, and she's like, "Oh my gosh, Melanie, I was just thinking of you." And I was just thinking of this, and now she wants to collaborate and work together, and that excites me. Like, those synchronicities, I've had
Yeah.
so many happen is I feel like everybody I talk to is talking about the synchronicities of this last week. It
Yeah.
just feels like the world has, like, up leveled
Yeah.
and has gone into a little bit of a less of a victim stance and more of a
Hmm.
creation and collaboration stance.
Yeah.
And so that's been happening this week, and I've had, like, so many examples of it. And yeah, it's been happening a lot. So
That's awesome.
I
I don't think
yeah.
anything happens by accident, anyways. I think that
No.
the more you look for it, the more you will recognize it in the
Yeah.
moments that things happen for a reason.
Yeah.
And whether you do or don't do something, it is exactly the right thing and timing for
Right.
you. You just
Yeah.
have to be aware of it and look for it.
Yeah.
Starting to notice more of those things in my life as well. And I think that comes with opening up and just, yeah, looking for incredible opportunities and seeing the beauty in people and the things around you just for what it is.
And I
Yeah.
think, I mean, always the lesson is be more grateful for what you have.
Yes.
I think that is
100%.
always the key to probably just about everything that we don't quite realize.
Yeah. So true. So true. Well, I want to thank you so much for coming on and sharing just a little bit about what you do and the power of story. And I always love talking with you.
Yeah. Thank you, Krista.
Thank you for joining me today on another episode of Becoming Sound. If this episode resonated with you in some way, please share it with someone you care about. And don't forget to hit the subscribe button. It helps to get this information out to more people who may need it. If you have a sec, I would love a follow on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. While you're there, hit the 5-star rating and give me a review. When you're scrolling, follow me on my social platforms, and I would love to hear your comments and feedback. Have a fabulous day, lots of love and gratitude from me. Please note, the views, information, and opinions expressed during the Becoming Sound podcast series are solely those of the individuals involved. The content of this podcast is to educate, inform, and for entertainment purposes only. This podcast series and the content presented does not constitute for medical or other professional advice or services. If you are in crisis or in need of help, please contact your medical or professional provider.